I never thought I would end up here, sitting at a small cafe table on a quiet Friday evening, nervously stirring a cup of tea I hadn't even tasted, waiting for someone who had already changed the way I saw myself. If you had asked me a year ago what I thought about dating transgender women, I would have given you a carefully rehearsed, distant answer. Something vague about respecting people's choices while secretly wondering what that world was really like. Back then, my own crossdressing was a private ritual, something hidden in the back of my closet both literally and metaphorically. I told myself it was just clothing, just a way to release tension, but deep down I knew it was more than that. It was a door to a self I barely understood, and one I feared everyone else would reject. It all started when I joined an online group for crossdressers. At first, it was purely for tips, makeup techniques, voice training videos, and late-night chats about hiding dresses from nosy relatives. The group felt safe, like a small corner of the internet where no one judged and everyone had their own quiet battles. That's where I met Lily. Her username was simple, just Lily, with no flashy emojis or overly revealing pictures. She introduced herself as a transgender woman who enjoyed helping others find their confidence. She had a calm way of writing that cut through the noise, and even though her profile picture was just a blurry sunset, her words drew me in. We started messaging about voice training, of all things. I was struggling to soften my speech, to find a sound that matched the way I felt when I slipped into a dress. She offered to call me one evening to walk me through some exercises. I remember staring at my phone, my heart pounding as her voice came through, gentle, warm, and undeniably feminine. It wasn't just her pitch. It was the way she carried every word, like she was comfortable in a space I had only tiptoed into. That first call stretched into hours. We talked about more than voice training. She told me about her transition, the loneliness of living between worlds, and the courage it took to finally stop hiding. I told her about my fear of being discovered, the way I felt torn between who I was expected to be and the person I wanted to become. By the time we hung up, the sun was rising outside my window. Weeks passed, and our conversations grew longer and more personal. She sent me photos, soft smiles, stylish outfits, a confidence that seemed to glow from within. Each picture made me ache with a mix of admiration and longing. She was beautiful, yes, but it was more than that. She was real. She wasn't a fantasy behind a screen. She was a woman who had fought for her identity and refused to let the world define her. I began to realize that my fascination wasn't just about her being transgender. It was about her being unapologetically herself, something I had never managed to do. The idea of meeting in person scared me, but Lily suggested it with such casual kindness that I couldn't say no. She said, "Let's just grab tea. No pressure. Just two people who understand each other." I spent days agonizing over what to wear. I didn't dare dress fully feminine. What if someone recognized me? But I also wanted to show her the side of me she had helped nurture. I settled on a fitted sweater and jeans, nothing dramatic but softer than my usual clothes. When I looked in the mirror before leaving, I noticed how my gestures had already changed. My posture, the way I tilted my head, it was subtle but it was there. Lily's influence had seeped into me like sunlight warming a cold room. The cafe was quiet when I arrived, with the faint hum of indie music in the background. I found a table near the window and tried to calm my shaking hands. When Lily walked in, I recognized her instantly. Her photos hadn't done her justice. She carried herself with a quiet elegance, her long hair framing her face like it belonged to the moment itself. She smiled when she saw me, and something inside me settled. There was no awkwardness, no dramatic pause, just a natural ease as she sat down across from me. We talked for hours. About everything. About her struggles with dating. About the way people's perceptions could shift like sand depending on what box they thought you fit into. She shared stories of men who treated her like a secret, of friends who disappeared when she began to transition. I listened, not as someone curious from the outside, but as someone who understood what it meant to live behind a mask. Somewhere between our laughter and quiet admissions, I felt the walls around my own identity begin to crack. As the evening stretched on, I realized something startling. My attraction to Lily wasn't confusion. It wasn't curiosity. It was clarity. For the first time I was drawn to someone not despite who they were, but because of it. Lily embodied a kind of freedom I had been chasing in the shadows. She wasn't just a woman I admired. She was a mirror of the courage I longed to find in myself. When the cafe finally dimmed its lights, signaling closing time, we stepped outside into the cool night air. Lily looked at me with a softness that made my heart skip. "You don't have to hide from me," she said quietly. It wasn't a demand. It was an invitation. In that moment, I wanted to tell her everything. About the dresses hidden in my closet, the voice exercises I whispered into the night, the dreams I barely let myself think. Instead, I just nodded, my throat too tight for words. Walking home, I replayed every second of the evening. Her voice, her stories, the way she looked at me as if she saw through every layer I had built to keep the world out. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel ashamed of my crossdressing. Felt connected. To her. To myself. To a future I had been too afraid to imagine. But with that connection came questions I wasn't ready to answer. Could I really date someone who lived so boldly when I was still hiding? What would it mean to step into a relationship that challenged not just the world's expectations, but my own? Those thoughts swirled in my mind as I unlocked my apartment door and stepped into the quiet darkness. I didn't know where this would lead, but I knew one thing with absolute certainty. Meeting Lily had changed everything. The following days felt like walking through a dream that refused to end. Every message from Lily carried a spark that lit up my phone screen and, somehow, the quiet corners of my heart. She didn't just ask how I was doing, she asked how I was feeling. It was a small difference, but it mattered. People in my life rarely cared about feelings. They cared about appearances, about whether I was keeping up with the version of myself they believed in. But Lily wanted to know about the person hiding behind all that. It was disarming and exhilarating at once. I found myself replaying our cafe meeting over and over. The way she smiled when I made her laugh. The warmth in her eyes when she said I didn't have to hide. It wasn't just attraction, it was recognition. She saw something in me I had barely dared to see myself. At night, I caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror and lingered longer than usual. My features were the same, but my posture, my gaze, even the way I tilted my head, carried a quiet confidence I couldn't explain. It was as if Lily's acceptance had unlocked a part of me that had been waiting, patient and silent, for years. One evening, while scrolling through our chat history, I hesitated before typing a message I'd never sent to anyone. "I want to meet again." Almost instantly, her reply popped up. "I was hoping you'd say that." My heart raced as we set a time for Saturday afternoon. This time she suggested a walk in the park. "Somewhere we can just be," she wrote. The simplicity of it made my chest tighten. There would be no dark cafe corners to hide in. It would be daylight, open space, and the possibility of being seen. Saturday arrived with a crisp breeze that carried the scent of fallen leaves. I agonized over my outfit for hours before settling on something soft but still neutral. A pastel cardigan over a fitted shirt, jeans that skimmed my legs just enough to hint at the shape I often tried to downplay. As I walked toward the park, every step felt heavier with expectation. I wasn't just meeting Lily. I was meeting the version of myself that wanted to step into the light. Lily was already there when I arrived, leaning against a wooden fence near the entrance. She wore a light scarf and a long coat that fluttered gently in the wind. The sight of her made the world around me blur. She waved, and just like that, the nervousness melted into a quiet warmth. We started walking, our steps falling into an easy rhythm. The park was alive with people and soft laughter, but for me, it felt like we were moving inside our own private world. As we walked, Lily shared more of her story. Her early fears, the countless small victories, the days when the world felt like it would never understand. I listened, completely absorbed, until she turned the conversation toward me. "Tell me about your first time dressing," she said, her tone gentle, not prying. My throat tightened. I had never spoken those memories aloud, not even to myself, but something about her presence made it feel safe. "It was in college," I admitted slowly. "A roommate left a box of old clothes when he moved out. There was this soft sweater. I don't even know why I tried it on. But when I did, it felt like I recognized myself for the first time. I kept it hidden for years. Still do, mostly. My voice cracked on the last words. Lily didn't interrupt. She just nodded, her eyes kind and understanding. That first recognition, she said quietly. It never really leaves you. It's a truth you can't unlearn, no matter how hard you try to bury it. Her words landed like a gentle weight on my heart, comforting and terrifying all at once. We sat on a bench overlooking a small pond, the late afternoon sun painting everything in gold. Lily turned to me and asked, "Do you ever think about where this could lead? Your crossdressing, I mean. Not as something to fear, but as a path." The question hung in the air, heavy and liberating. I swallowed hard. I think about it all the time. But it's complicated. Family, work, friends. I can barely imagine telling anyone, let alone living openly. She smiled, not with pity, but with quiet pride. It's okay to take your time. Transformation isn't a race. It's a series of small, honest choices. Her words lingered in my mind long after we said goodbye that evening. As I walked home under the fading light, I realized something profound. For years, I had treated my crossdressing like a guilty secret, a hidden indulgence. But with Lily, it was becoming something else. It wasn't just about clothing or presentation. It was about identity, courage, and the possibility of love that existed outside the rigid boxes I had spent my life trying to fit into. That night, I stood in front of my bedroom mirror, pulling on the soft sweater I had kept since college. The fabric felt like a second skin, familiar and comforting. But this time something was different. I wasn't dressing to escape. I was dressing to connect, to Lily, to myself, to the truth I had buried for too long. As I looked into my own eyes, a quiet thought surfaced. Maybe this isn't just about crossdressing. Maybe this is about finally becoming whole. The next morning, Lily sent me a voice message. I pressed play and her gentle tone filled the room. "I had a wonderful time yesterday," she said. "You have such a beautiful way of seeing the world. Don't ever hide that. And don't be afraid of what you feel. You deserve to explore it." Her words wrapped around me like a warm blanket, and I felt a surge of something I hadn't let myself feel in years, hope. But with hope came fear. Could I really step into a relationship like this? Could I let someone love me while I was still figuring out who I was? The questions chased me through the following days, but beneath them was an undeniable truth. Lily had already begun to change me, and I wasn't sure I wanted to go back. The week that followed felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, aware that every step forward meant leaving something behind. I went through my daily routine, work, errands, small talk with coworkers, but everything felt slightly out of focus. Lily's voice message replayed in my head whenever there was a quiet moment, each word echoing with a calm certainty that both comforted and unsettled me. I had lived for so long behind carefully built walls that I hardly remembered what it felt like to simply be seen. Now, those walls were starting to crack, and I couldn't decide if I was ready for what lay beyond them. By midweek, Lily invited me to her apartment for dinner. "Nothing fancy," she texted. "Just food and conversation." My heart leapt at the invitation, but anxiety quickly followed. Meeting in a public park was one thing. Stepping into her private space felt like crossing an invisible threshold. I hesitated, my fingers hovering over the keyboard before typing a single word. Yes. Saturday evening arrived faster than I expected. I spent hours preparing, trying to balance subtle femininity with the comfort of blending in. After a dozen wardrobe changes, I settled on a soft gray sweater and black slacks, adding a delicate silver necklace I had never worn outside my apartment. It wasn't overtly feminine, but it carried a quiet elegance that made me feel both exposed and alive. Her apartment was tucked inside a modest building with ivy creeping along the brick walls. When she opened the door, the warm glow of lamplight spilled into the hallway. Lily looked radiant in a simple burgundy dress, her hair loosely tied back. She greeted me with a hug, warm, unhurried, grounding. The scent of home-cooked food floated through the air, mingling with a faint trace of her perfume. I felt my nerves begin to settle. Dinner was intimate but easy. Lily had prepared pasta with a rich tomato sauce, and we ate while sharing stories of childhood dreams and awkward teenage years. She laughed when I admitted to secretly borrowing my mother's scarves as a kid, and I laughed when she described the elaborate excuses she used to sneak makeup past her parents. It was the kind of laughter that loosened tight spaces in the heart. After dinner, we moved to the couch with cups of tea. A soft instrumental playlist played in the background. Lily studied me for a moment before speaking. "You carry yourself differently now," she said. "More open. Do you feel it?" Her observation startled me, but she was right. I felt less like I was hiding inside a carefully constructed shell. "I think I do," I admitted. "Being around you, it makes things clearer. Like I'm not pretending anymore, even when I still dress. In between." Lily smiled, her eyes gentle. "That's the power of being seen. You don't have to have all the answers right now. Just knowing who you are in this moment is enough." Her words settled deep inside me. We sat in companionable silence for a while, the soft hum of music filling the space. Then, almost without thinking, I confessed something I had never said aloud. "Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever stop hiding. Not just the clothes, the feelings. The part of me that wants to live differently." Lily reached for my hand, her touch warm and steady. "You don't have to decide everything tonight," she said softly. "But you can start by letting yourself feel. There's no shame in wanting to be whole." Her kindness loosened a knot I hadn't realized I was carrying. My eyes stung, but I blinked back the tears. For the first time in years, I felt like someone understood the complexity of my heart without demanding an explanation. Before I left that night, Lily handed me a small gift bag. "Something for you," she said with a playful smile. "No pressure to use it. Just when you're ready." Inside, I found a delicate lipstick in a soft rose shade. It was a simple gesture, but it felt like an invitation to a future I hadn't dared to imagine. Back home, I placed the lipstick on my dresser and stared at it for a long time. The color was subtle yet vibrant, a quiet reflection of everything I was feeling. I traced the smooth casing with my fingertips, remembering Lily's words. "There's no shame in wanting to be whole." The next morning, I woke with a sense of anticipation I couldn't shake. I showered, dressed in my usual casual clothes, and then, almost without thinking, picked up the lipstick. My hands trembled as I applied it, carefully at first, then with growing confidence. When I finally looked in the mirror, I barely recognized the person staring back. It wasn't just the color on my lips, it was the way my eyes shone with something new. Courage, maybe even joy. I snapped a photo, my heart pounding, and sent it to Lily before I could second-guess myself. Within moments, her reply arrived. "Stunning." That single word filled me with warmth and a quiet pride I hadn't felt in years. Over the next few days, Lily and I grew closer. We texted constantly, sharing small moments of our days and quiet reflections at night. Our connection felt natural, like a conversation that had been waiting for us all along. Yet beneath the growing intimacy, I felt a subtle tension, a fear of the unknown. What would people think if they knew I was spending so much time with a transgender woman? What would they say if they discovered my crossdressing? The questions buzzed in my mind, but each time I heard Lily's voice, they seemed to lose their power. One evening, as we chatted on a video call, Lily asked if I had ever considered dating openly. The question caught me off guard. I hesitated, unsure how to answer. "I don't know," I finally said. "It feels complicated. People have so many opinions. And I'm still figuring myself out." She nodded thoughtfully. "It is complicated. But love isn't about fitting into other people's expectations. It's about finding someone who sees you, all of you, and still chooses to stay." Her words lingered long after the call ended. I sat in the quiet of my room, staring at my reflection in the darkened window. For so long I had lived in fear of being judged, of being rejected for who I truly was. But with Lily I felt something different. I felt seen, accepted, and most unexpectedly, wanted. That night, I applied the rose lipstick again before going to bed. It wasn't about appearance anymore. It was a small act of defiance, a promise to myself that I would no longer hide from the truth waiting to be spoken. The following weekend brought a turning point I hadn't anticipated. Lily invited me to attend a small gathering at her friend's apartment, a casual get-together with a few people from her community. "They're wonderful," she assured me. "No judgment. Just friends, laughter, and good food. You might like it." My stomach tightened at the idea. For years I had built my life around careful concealment, keeping my crossdressing private and my relationships distant. Now she was asking me to step into a space where hiding might not be possible. Almost said no. But something in Lily's steady confidence made me pause. She wasn't pushing me into anything. She was offering me a door. After a long breath, I typed back a single word: yes. Saturday evening arrived with the faint chill of early winter. I spent hours debating what to wear, my closet suddenly feeling like a battleground of identities. Finally, I chose a soft cream sweater, slim dark pants, and a delicate pendant necklace Lily had once admired in a photo I sent her. It wasn't overtly feminine, but it carried a quiet grace that felt honest. I left my apartment with a heart that thudded against my ribs. The gathering was held in a cozy loft filled with warm light and the scent of baked bread. Laughter floated through the hallway as I approached the door. When Lily opened it, her smile melted my nerves like sunlight breaking through clouds. She looked effortlessly elegant in a teal blouse and flowing skirt, her presence grounding me instantly. She introduced me to her friends, some transgender, some cisgender, some whose identities defied simple labels. Each person greeted me with warmth and genuine curiosity, not the guarded politeness I had braced for. As the evening unfolded, I began to relax. Conversations flowed easily, touching on music, travel, and personal journeys. One woman shared her story of coming out in her 40s, her voice carrying both pain and triumph. Another guest, a quiet man with gentle eyes, spoke about supporting his sister through transition. Their openness chipped away at the fear I had carried for so long. At one point, Lily gently encouraged me to share a little about myself. My pulse quickened, but I found myself speaking before I could retreat. "I crossdress," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "It's something I've kept private for years. Tonight is the first time I've talked about it in front of more than one person." The room fell into a brief, respectful silence. Then a woman across from me smiled warmly. "That's brave," she said simply. Others nodded in quiet agreement. No judgment, no awkwardness, just acceptance. The relief was so profound it felt like a physical release, as if I had been carrying a heavy weight without realizing how much it hurt. Later in the evening, I stepped onto the small balcony to catch my breath. The city lights glittered below, a quiet reminder of the world beyond this safe cocoon. Lily joined me, wrapping a scarf around her shoulders. "You did beautifully," she said, her voice soft but sure. "I was terrified," I admitted. "And you still spoke your truth," she replied. "That's courage." Her words settled over me like a gentle blanket. I turned to look at her, the soft glow of the city reflecting in her eyes. In that moment I felt something shift, a deeper recognition of the connection growing between us. The next day we met for brunch at a quiet cafe. Over steaming mugs of coffee, Lily asked how I felt about the night before. "Relieved," I said after a pause. For the first time I wasn't pretending. And it felt freeing. She reached across the table, lightly brushing her fingers against mine. "That freedom is yours," she said. "You don't need anyone's permission to claim it." Her touch lingered in my mind long after we parted. That evening, back in my apartment, I stood in front of the mirror wearing the same cream sweater I'd worn to the gathering. But something was different now. My reflection no longer felt like a secret. Felt like an introduction. In the days that followed, Lily and I grew even closer. We talked about everything. Our fears, our dreams, the small details that made us feel alive. She shared more about her experiences with dating, about the unique challenges of being a transgender woman in a world that often misunderstood her. "It's not easy," she admitted one night during a late video call. "Some people see me as a fantasy. Others see me as a threat. Few take the time to really know me." I listened, my chest tightening with empathy. "I want to know you," I said softly. "Not just the parts people choose to see. All of you." Her smile in response was quiet but radiant. "That's all I've ever wanted," she said. By the end of the week, she invited me to join her for a community event, an art exhibit celebrating transgender voices. I hesitated, but the thought of spending more time with her outweighed the lingering fear. The night of the exhibit, I chose an outfit with more intention than ever before. A flowing cardigan, subtle makeup, and the rose lipstick Lily had given me. For the first time, I left my apartment presenting in a way that felt authentically me, without the frantic rush of hiding behind locked doors. Walking through the gallery with Lily beside me was surreal. The walls were lined with photographs and paintings depicting journeys of identity, resilience, and self-discovery. As we moved from piece to piece, I felt the art reflecting something deep within us both, a shared truth that defied easy explanation. At one striking portrait of a woman mid-transition, Lily squeezed my hand. "This is what it means to live honestly," she whispered. Her words sent a shiver through me, a mix of fear and exhilaration. That night, after we said goodbye, I lingered outside the gallery, the cool night air brushing against the warmth of the lipstick on my lips. For the first time, the fear of being seen felt smaller than the joy of being alive. I understood then that this journey wasn't only about clothing or presentation. It was about love. Love for Lily, yes, but also love for the person I was finally beginning to embrace. When the sun finally rose after that long night of confessions, it felt like it was rising on a new life. I sat by my bedroom window, staring at the soft golden light filtering through the curtains, my mind replaying every word from the evening before. Jordan had been everything I never expected. Patient, gentle, and fearless in a world that often rewarded neither. He didn't just see me, he saw through me. His openness about his experiences dating transgender women had stripped away so many of the myths I'd carried. And yet, even after such a night, the heaviest truth still waited inside me like a secret I wasn't sure I had the strength to keep or reveal. The next days blurred into a rhythm of cautious optimism. We texted constantly, weaving conversations about music and favorite coffee shops into deeper exchanges about identity, fear, and belonging. Each message felt like another thread tying me to a life I wasn't sure I could live. My crossdressing, once something I'd only dared to explore behind closed doors, now lingered at the edge of every conversation. I wanted to tell him. I wanted to tell someone. The need was no longer a whisper. It was a heartbeat. The following weekend, Jordan invited me to a quiet riverside cafe. He arrived with that effortless grace I was beginning to recognize as uniquely his. We ordered tea and settled into a corner booth, the river glinting behind him like a ribbon of light. As we talked, my mind kept wandering to the words I'd rehearsed over and over in the mirror. At last, when he paused to sip his drink, I took a breath and told him everything. How I'd been dressing in private for years, how it made me feel whole and terrified at the same time, how I didn't know if I was just exploring or if it was a deeper part of who I was. He didn't flinch. He didn't laugh. He didn't even look surprised. Instead, he reached across the table and rested his hand over mine. "Thank you for trusting me," he said simply. "You deserve to be exactly who you are. Nothing about what you just told me changes how I see you." His words landed with a quiet force that nearly brought me to tears. For so long I had prepared for rejection that I had forgotten the possibility of acceptance. That night, for the first time, I stepped outside dressed as the person I had always imagined. Jordan invited me to a late-night art exhibit, and though my heart pounded as I walked to meet him in a soft floral dress and a light cardigan, something miraculous happened. People looked, of course they did, but no one stared. Couples smiled. A woman complimented my shoes. And Jordan, standing at the entrance with a grin that felt like sunlight, simply said, "You look like you." As we wandered through the quiet halls of the gallery, I felt layers of fear slide away like old paint. I wasn't just a shadow of myself anymore. I was becoming. The transformation wasn't about clothing or voice or even passing in the eyes of strangers. It was about honesty, about finally letting the inside and outside of my life meet in the same space. Later, as we stood on a balcony overlooking the city, Jordan told me more about his own journey, about the love and heartbreak, the misunderstandings and the moments of pure connection he'd experienced while dating transgender women. People think it's complicated, he said, but really it's just about respect. Love doesn't ask for explanations. It asks for presence. Those words stayed with me long after the night ended. They carried me through the weeks that followed, as I began introducing small pieces of my truth to trusted friends and eventually to my family. Some moments were hard. There were questions, silences, awkward stumbles, but there was also unexpected kindness. Each conversation became a small victory, a reminder that the world is bigger and softer than the fear inside my head. Looking back now, I realize that the truth about dating transgender women, about crossdressing, about any kind of transformation, is not about scandal or curiosity. It's about courage. The courage to love without conditions, to stand beside someone as they peel back the layers of who they are. It's about the quiet power of acceptance, the way it reshapes not just relationships but entire lives. Jordan and I didn't rush into anything. We didn't need to. What mattered was that we had built something honest, a connection rooted in trust, respect, and the freedom to be ourselves. Whether we became lovers, partners, or lifelong friends didn't define the success of our story. What defined it was the way we had both grown simply by daring to tell the truth. Tonight, as I sit once again by my bedroom window, the city lights flickering in the distance, I feel a calm I once thought impossible. I am still discovering who I am. Still learning how to walk through the world in shoes that finally fit. But I know this. I no longer have to hide. The truth, the whole, complicated, beautiful truth, is enough. And in that truth, I have found not just acceptance, but a kind of love that begins within and radiates outward, touching everything it meets.